I'm Skylor. This is Dagan. This is the Ed3 Cache, where we talk about, what's going on in the Web3 space as well as the education space, and here to highlight some of Dagan's, newsletters that he's been doing for almost 200 episodes now. Welcome on the show, Dagan.
Awesome, thank you. Nice to be here. Yeah, just dropped 189 today.
Consistency.
Every week. Well, I'm an educator and musician, so back in October there was a big conference over in Honolulu, the Schools of the Future conference. So I was over there representing, I'm the president of HISTE, which is the Hawaii Society for Technology and Education, and we run a technology playground there. So as president, I was helping to facilitate that. We have some great partnerships with Samsung and some other digital platforms who came from around the country to showcase what they're doing at that conference. Hundreds, almost 1,200 educators were at this conference. So that was a big 3-day event in October, and then in November I just released a new album of music. I did a 5-song EP that I just released on Spotify and Apple Music, and I just did a tour of the island promoting that album project. So yeah, busy in both my education and music worlds.
Right.
The title of the album is Dagan Sound. So you can go to your streaming platform and just look up Dagan, like Dagan, and sound. Or look me up, Dagan Bernstein, on any of your streaming platforms, and it's at Dagan Music on Instagram. That's kind of my main social media that I use to promote the music. So yeah, go check it out, listen, stream it, share it with your friends. It's all Hawaiian music, so 3 original songs and 2 traditional arrangements.
Dagan, it's one of his hidden talents that he doesn't really advertise, but he's a real good musician. And appreciate you having carving out the time for this. I know you also been doing the baking, right, with your wife, so
yes, that's my unofficial job, is bakery assistant. The job I never applied for and just became my job. So but yeah, we run a home sourdough bakery, cottage bakery out of our house. So yeah, we bake bread every week and sell it just locally.
It's crazy because somebody came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, I know Dagan, he does the bread," and I was like, "Well, how do you guys know about that?"
They do a segment on the news, and he's one of our best customers, and he was just raving about our bread on the news, and so word got out. So
that's awesome. As much as you are doing for the community, and with the newsletter as well, it's really astounding seeing how much you can really do, in the 24 hours that you do have.
Yeah, if you love it, you just do it. That's it's what I'm interested in, so I do it.
But anyway, let's kind of get into kind of what we brought here today for. A couple weeks ago, you shared a little bit about the college.xyz and how education is playing into the blockchain space. Let's talk a little bit about that. And obviously you as an educator, and me being in the blockchain space, wanting to create jobs here in Hawaii. Keeping people and our talent here in Hawaii.
Yeah, well, I think kind of at the 40,000 foot level, innovation in schools often starts in higher education. There's a real trickle down effect that has happened with innovation and change in technology. We've seen this with computers and coding and programming, to internet, to mobile, even with remote learning and online learning that was happening at universities before it moved into K-12 schools. When you look at new trends, I think a good place to look is kind of what's happening at universities to see where kind of the bleeding edge is. And I've just really seen a sea change happen at the university level in terms of adoption and acceptance of blockchain programs and blockchain degrees, blockchain courses. And they live in different areas in university systems. Obviously the finance department is an obvious one, but we're also seeing it show up in a lot of areas around data, supply chain tracking, then of course computer science and coding and whatnot. And kind of in looking at this and also helping to organize the student blockchain summit that we ran last spring over in Honolulu at Manoa. As I was kind of putting that project together, I came across this guy, Evan Solomon, who recently graduated from the University of Michigan, who had put together the Midwest Blockchain Conference through his work with the University of Michigan Blockchain group. And so I've kind of been following him on LinkedIn and X and what he's been working on. And they just have huge momentum behind what they're doing. I mean, they're developing internship opportunities, job opportunities, just all kinds of opportunities for people in college who want to look at careers in the blockchain industry. And he's just taken off like a rocket ship. And this year, in putting together the newest version of the Midwest Blockchain Conference, he launched a new platform called college.xyz. And it looks like it's just in the early stages, but in my issue, this was issue 181 back in October, I kind of profiled the link to the website and what they're doing and the types of things available on that website, which, I mean, essentially, I think the best resource that they have there is they're facilitating partnerships between all these industry people and students. So there's people from Polymarket and Avalanche and the Ethereum Foundation, Solana, I mean, everyone, Filecoin, like your who's who, and they are really hungry for talent. They're really hungry for people who are entering the workforce who want to apply their skill set in this industry. And that could be marketing, that could be actual more computer science fields, but really whatever your skill set is, they're trying to get you in the fold with their company. So I think they're just doing a lot of great work, and it's an area I'm definitely keeping a close eye on.
Yeah. I think it's really one of those points in time where I can feel the momentum shifting a little bit from, here in Hawaii, we're trying to get that type of involvement, right? We're trying to get that. We're trying to create the jobs here, which is, I think the hardest part, a lot of the time is that we just ship our talent off, we train up all these people and then they end up just moving out. But with the onset of, remote work nowadays, I think it's more and more possible for, jobs, high paying jobs to be here in Hawaii. Granted, all of the tech layoffs and all that kind of stuff recently, but I still think that there's a high quality talent here in Hawaii that can be sourced, and I think that's why a lot of the tech companies here will, or not here, but in the mainland, will come to Hawaii to look for talent. And so I think we as an organization and Blockchain in Paradise, we're looking at tapping into some of the capstone projects for UH. We're actually in contact with somebody from UH right now, trying to see if we can actually implement a capstone project for some of the interested students. But it's becomes to a point where the students have to choose us as an organization, right? They have to come to their own conclusion that, okay, this might be something that is worthwhile, right? I know in that article they talked about how they were, I think even just looking at the website, Stand With Crypto, they're trying to create like more college communities, chapter kind of deals as well, which is interesting, but it always comes back down to the community aspect of we have to have the people interested to start something like this, right? We aren't gonna, I could definitely do it, but I'm not a college student, right? So I think that's kind of one of the hurdles right now, is getting people interested enough to even think, oh, okay, like I'm gonna do something with blockchain because nobody else is really doing it right now, right? So what do you think about, or what do you think would be a good way to get more people pulled into the, students to be
Yeah.
more interested in this type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really comes down to talking to the professors and the ones teaching the students. There's like this weird dynamic at play because I think academia has been probably the most suspect of blockchain. There's just something about the academic way of doing things that is really cautious about adopting new ideas, and especially things that like were really created like outside the kind of structures of society. Like we're talking about something that is changing our financial system, changing our banking system, and you have professors in economics and finance that have been teaching about like how banking works and how monetary systems work and how currency systems work. And here comes this technology that is kind of saying, actually, that's really kind of a myth. Like it can work in a totally different way. It can work peer to peer. It can work borderless. It can work through self custody. And they almost like freak out. And I think the defense is to like, well, look how risky it is, and it's being used by criminals, and it's not trusted, and da 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 da. So, like, when students go to college, they look up to professors. They're looking at them as mentors and for guidance, because those are the people that can help them get grant money or get them into graduate programs or can help them with getting jobs or internships. And if your finance professor is saying, blockchain, it's just a fad and it's so sketchy, and look, Bitcoin went down 20%, it's like, it's just a speculative asset, the kids are going to go, okay, maybe you're right. But like, I think the more professors you have, and they do exist. I mean, you look at people at Duke University, NYU, Columbia, like big, major universities, there are voices there that aren't the majority, but are, trying to support blockchain and cryptocurrencies as viable technologies and financial instruments. And the more of those professors we have that are talking with students can help them kind of sell this story, for lack of a better word, because that's really what needs to happen is, students need to get sold on this as a field and as an industry and as a lucrative future to pursue. Because if not, they're going to go, why get involved in something that's so risky when I can go work at a bank or work on Wall Street or work, doing whatever, because it's more safe, quote unquote. So I think that's really one area that we just need more buy-in is from those professors.
Yeah, it comes from the top down, right?
Yeah.
I think, personally looking at blockchain technology, a lot of it is infrastructure plays,
Yeah.
and to understand the infrastructure, like the systems that we have in place now, requires a lot of like macroeconomic insight, as well as just macro view of traditional systems, right? I think people don't really see the true value until it starts getting at scale, like this huge, massive scale, right? Of course we could do it at a community level, which is, that's that's what we shoot for here, especially in Hawaii, is that sovereignty aspect of blockchain technology. And I think it's something that is really important. But I think a lot of the people, especially students nowadays, they want to go where the money is. They want to get jobs, they want to get paid, and I think college.xyz is filling that gap. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're really like,
Yep.
hey, come learn about this technology. You can get placed in this type of job, right? USDC,
Yep.
or I mean, Circle is paying you
Yep,
like $40 an hour. Like, you
Yep.
can work at whatever Ethereum Foundation, getting paid $8,000 a month, right? Because once you,
Yep.
I think it's like anything else, right? It's like you don't really understand it until you start using it, becoming a user of the technology, right? Like, I remember when NFTs were a thing on Ethereum, MetaMask, and exchanging tokens and stuff like that. And then I never really messed with it because I'm like, why do I want to use my crypto? Like, I just want to hold it, because it's gonna go up. And then you see like all this kind of crazy stuff people are doing where it's like, oh yeah, I can take this loan out and then just borrow this money on this thing and then instantly transfer it into this thing and then just leverage up all my assets. Essentially what the banks are doing, right? It's the peer-to-peer nature that you kind of like start to understand better. And you understand that you don't really need a centralized source of entity, platform, or whatnot to commerce with other people. That becomes really powerful just because of the sheer amount of inefficiencies that wire transfers have. At a certain point, stable coins are going to overtake the ACH transfers for banks. And if the banks, or if people aren't,
Yeah.
and like anything else in blockchain technology, or I would say even social networks, right? It always comes down to, the network is the net worth. You know what I mean? The more people that start to use it, the more the network becomes valuable, the more, it just starts to become something more than, more valuable. But anyway, I digress, right? So I think you also in that article, they were talking about how some of the teachers are integrating this into the classroom on the lower education, like I guess the middle school, or was it in New York? Oh yeah, the learn, earn, and experience. Could you talk a little bit about that? I think that's a very interesting aspect of this whole thing. Because,
Yes.
I think where, oh yeah, I can get paid to learn. That's kind of
Yeah.
awesome.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science behind this, and it is a pretty touchy subject in education because, there's this whole debate between, oh, well, students should be intrinsically motivated to learn, and we shouldn't have to pay them to learn, and blah blah blah. But I think at the end of the day, the unfortunate reality is we're dealing with so many distractions, and we're dealing with so many other places that kids' minds want to go to, and we're trying to incentivize learning for what, because, oh, you graduate from high school and you'll go to college. If you go to college, you'll get a good job. And it's like when that model breaks down, I think there's a need to try and kind of rethink that structure. And there is some new research coming out that is showing that learn to earn models can be effective ways to engage people with learning. So I think it also helps address this issue where, I think you and I would agree that there is a value to people getting education about how, just the basics of how Web3 and crypto and blockchain works before you really start transacting with it, especially since we're in this kind of middle ground of where, there are some mechanics to it that you need to know how to do. You should know the difference between a speculative asset and an asset that represents a value, and what's a stable coin, and so on and so forth. So I just imagine a world in which people, when they are issued crypto wallets, are able to access learning and kind of check that box, and then create a flywheel effect where they're being rewarded with some sort of token or some sort of current cryptocurrency as a reward for learning, and that will help incentivize people to learn as adults. But in addition, I don't see why that can't expand to young people, especially in low income areas in which it's not a motivation to learn. It's actually, they can't go to school because they're in a house with 5-6 kids, and they have to watch their siblings, or they have to work a second or third job to help support their family. And those types of kids, if you do offer them monetary compensation to engage with learning, they're going to do that because their main focus is trying to earn money to support their family. And if they had the choice to learn and get paid or go work at McDonald's for 8 hours, I'm pretty sure they would go learn. So the more we create these societal conditions in which spending time learning is less advantageous than having to actually work to pay your bills, we have to look at models like this that are learn to earn types of models.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Because I think most people can, attest to that here in Hawaii. The cost of living has
Yeah.
just gone crazy. Don't even get me started about how much milk costs now. Which yeah, that's really insightful. And oh man, there's just so much to talk about. With you got so many articles that we haven't even touched on, but drop that link for everybody. Where can everybody find these articles and
Yeah.
plug
Well,
that?
the easiest way to get to the newsletters, just go to ed3weekly.xyz, and that's just a simple one-page website I built. It'll link you direct to the Substack. If you're already in Substack, just look up Ed3 Weekly. It'll show up. And then, of course, on my socials, Ed3 Weekly on Twitter, Ed3 Weekly on Instagram. It's ed3weekly.substack.com. It's just kind of a one-stop shop. And yeah, there's over 100. Well, I just did issue 189. And there are resources going back over 3 years now. There is a search function in Substack, so if you want to search a topic or an idea, I kind of built it with the idea of it operating as an archive as well. So they're all curated by me. There's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 articles per issue, and unless the host website has shut down, they still should be live there on the internet. But if not, I think it's still good to kind of read through each issue. I do a little blurb at the beginning, kind of sharing what's on my mind for that week. And this week's issue, I talk about crypto and universal basic income and why the new mayor of New York was shaking hands with President Donald Trump.
Thanks, Dagan, for coming on. It's always great talking story with you. Chopping it up, back on that news, especially.